man? How are you?
How are you?
Good, man.
What's
nice
happening?
to see you.
Nice to see you.
Dave Grohl.
Look at that board.
This is it.
That's it right there.
This is the magic altar.
That's it.
It's all built around this now.
Look over here.
Okay.
Did you see all the people that have signed it?
No.
Okay, so in 1996, Carl Perkins, when this board was still at Sound City, Carl Perkins signed it. And he said, wow, what a great sound. Thanks a lot to Carl Perkins. So when we moved the board over here and we recorded all the stuff for the Sound City record, I had everybody sign it, like Fogerty, and look at how cute Stevie Nicks put little hearts next to her thing.
She's always going to be
Petty. You got Benmont. You got Paul. But look at this, dude. A Neve board.
Paul McCartney.
Signed by Rupert Neve. Come on.
That was a good part of the movie, man. That dude just sitting there talking about this. Those are the wizards. But so this is magic, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's your belief?
For
and
sure.
It's for real.
All of those albums wouldn't have sounded like those albums had it not been for this board.
This board was at Sound
This
City,
board is at Sound City.
and you moved it over. But, like, you got me to a good time to have this talk because I'm all about vinyl right now.
Oh, good.
I don't know what the fuck happened to me. But, like, what were the albums? Like, first,
Okay.
it all started with Buckingham Nicks in
Right.
terms of the modern sound.
Did you see the movie?
I did.
Okay, good. So before this board was in Sound City, they had another piece of equipment that wasn't considered state-of-the-art.
Right.
So this was state-of-the-art recording equipment in 1973. The thing that's different about this board is it was custom ordered by the producer Keith Olsen, who
Right.
was the house engineer at Sound City in 72, 73. So what you would do is you would order a board and they would build it to spec, and so this series of board, there aren't too many of them, but this one is the only one like it because of this monitor section,
Right.
that a lot of people consider to be the best monitor section of a Neve board ever. So a lot of bands, so what bands will do is they'll record their album through a desk and then they'll take it somewhere else to mix it.
Right.
This board, you'd record through here,
Yeah.
and then you would make sort of rough mixes on this monitor side.
Right on the monitor.
And you could never beat the sound of this monitor section anywhere else. So
it goes all to tape.
Yeah, to tape. Imagine this.
Yeah.
It's almost like playing telephone with someone.
Sure.
So, say you're playing telephone with a group of 10 people. You whisper in their ear. They
With the
whisper in
Foo
their
Fighters
ear.
in that room.
Yeah, in that room. By the time it comes back around,
Yeah.
it's something completely different than what it started out
Sure,
to be.
sure.
It's sort of the same thing with signal path.
Okay.
Okay, so say you have a sound going into a microphone, it comes through the cable.
Yeah.
If it's got 6 miles of cable to go through before it
gonna
hits
get
your
tired.
ear, something's going to happen to it that is exactly
worn out.
It's a long way.
Yeah.
So the great thing about a board like this is it's a very simple piece of equipment.
Right. It's less distance between the mic and the sound.
Right.
And there's fewer things that it has to go through, so it's more pure.
In a very technically retarded way.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's go plug in real mics. So here's what happens, man. I get hung up on my albums.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got 300 records. I don't play them anymore. And I thought I had good equipment, so then get hung up on tubes. I go buy a tube thing.
Yeah.
I interviewed Jack White, and he had a wall of Macintosh amps. So I'm thinking well, he's got a wall of those. How I could probably afford one. Wrong. So I go shop for Macintosh. It's like $12,000. I can't find it. It's fucking crazy. I mean, if you don't have that kind of money to drop, you buy one of those, you're never going to enjoy it because you're going to sit around thinking, does this sound like $12,000?
You can still enjoy music through an AM radio.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tom Waits once said, what's his favorite music? And he said an AM radio across the street.
You know what we used to do is we used to keep a little AM radio on in the corner of the room as we were recording, just so that you had some sort of sonic perspective. Like you're listening to music you're recording through these $100,000 speakers on the state-of-the-art equipment, and then when you hit stop and there's Barry Manilow on the AM radio.
Remember how some people are going to hear this.
Yeah, and your ears go back to normal.
Right.
Oh, that's what it really sounds like.
Right. So I've been buying all these I've been buying records that I grew up with. I haven't had. Like Zeppelin, ZZ Top, because we're about the same age, give or take a few years. So we grew up with that shit.
Sure.
And I'd never heard it through that equipment before.
How'd it sound?
Well, it sounds amazing. It sounds weird.
It sounds
well. It's like it's not what I'm used to. It's not listening to the radio. It's not listening to the shitty stereo I had when I was a kid. Everything's separated.
Yeah. Okay, so this is funny because I sort of did the same thing for my daughter like about 2 months ago. I got the Beatles box set.
I bought that too.
It's amazing.
Right.
It's 75 pounds, dude. It's like it's like a suitcase.
It means something.
And so it's amazing. So I bring it home, and my daughter, who already loves the Beatles, she's 6. I bring it home, and she looks at it, and she goes, "What is that?"
Yeah.
And I go, "Boo, this is the Beatles. This is all the Beatles records."
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh," and I open it up, and I hand her an album. Now she'd seen records before, but she never had any of her own.
Right.
So I said, "Okay, come on in." I got the turntable out of the garage. I put it in her room. I set it up. I said, "Here's how you do it. You take the record out of the sleeve and you put the hole in this thing, put that down, the arm, you got to be gentle, turn this on, hit this power." And
she's 6.
She's 6.
Yeah.
Dude, I walked out of the room an hour later. She had all the records on the floor. She had listened to them all. It's the same thing, dude. She was looking at the liner notes. She was dancing.
Looking at
she
the
was
pictures.
singing. It was unbelievable. But I had that weird buzz that turntables get because I wasn't grounded.
Yeah.
And I sat there trying to figure out, like, fucking how to ground it because it was impossible.
Right.
And then I was like, well, fuck it. This is what it sounded like when I was a kid.
That's what she gets.
Exactly. Like, I'm not going to give her, like, the audiophile version. Let her learn.
Don't get hung up on it.
Right.
Yeah, let it be dirty.
It's the same thing. It still does. If you went into her bedroom right now and turned on the record player, it was like, I woke her up this morning. She's lying in bed. I woke her up by, like, creeping into her room, and I started, Here Comes the Sun. That's how I woke her up today.
Yeah.
But it's going like, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I like I'm listening to these things, like, and I've got it in my head because I had this moment where, like we're saying, like I'd never heard it through good equipment. I've never heard it through the way it was supposed to be laid down. But the weird sequence of events that led up to me being here, that's kind of fucking with my head, is that I'm kind of hung up on Peter Green right now.
Right.
Like I've always liked that original Fleetwood Mac, and then and then you get into the Peter Green story, and I just saw this BBC documentary about him.
Whoa.
You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it.
You got to see it.
Is it nuts?
Well, it's nuts because I'm going to end up talking too much here, but
go for it.
But he's a great guitar player.
Sure.
I mean, he's probably better than the most of the blues British guys.
Okay.
Let's be specific. I'm not a Clapton guy, so I think that he replaced Clapton in that original Fleetwood Mac and made them what they were out of the whatever. So he loses his mind on acid. They all
join like a cult or something like that.
Well, it was unclear. That you got to see this. I'll send you the link to it. It's like an hour. It's from the BBC. Wow. So you got Mick Fleetwood, who you talked to in your movie.
Yeah.
Who's a pretty great guy.
Sure.
You got McVie, and it was one of these weird moments where they were taken off. He had a hit with Albatross in England. And they go to Munich, and they'd all tried acid when they were in San Francisco, no big deal. But they both of them, and Jeremy Spencer, all track it back to this one gig in Munich. Peter Green gets off the plane. He's met by these weird, kind of hipstery, rich-looking people.
Germans.
They go to a party. Yeah, Germans. Yeah. And they all end up at this party at this mansion. And Peter Green and Kerwin, the other guitar player, I don't remember his first name, they drop acid and end up going to jam downstairs. And all of them, anyone who was there said there was a sound coming out of the basement it wasn't right.
And that was it.
And they were like, we wouldn't even go down there. This is a road manager.
Awesome.
And then they said they saw Spencer and Green, and their faces were kind of fucked up with almost And Fleetwood and McVie said, since that day, that was the end of him.
That was it.
And
beginning of the end.
Well, right. And then he sort of he was in and out of institutions for 10 years.
Yeah.
And now he's like out.
Wait, this is in the movie, everything you just said?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
In the documentary. So I'm just telling you as a friend here that, now he's out. Like a biographer chased him down.
Wow.
And wanted to write on him. And he was on all this medicine, and his family had pulled him out of the institution because it didn't look like it was helping. So he's like 60, he's fat, and he's almost got a Buddha-ish kind of thing. And this biographer said, maybe you shouldn't take the medicine. And he stopped taking the medicine, and he became lucid again.
There you go.
But see, the interesting thing about it to me, in dealing with who you came up with and what you've been through in rock and roll, was that in this documentary, they asked this old Peter Green, it's like, well, what about that night in Munich? And all he had to say was like, yeah, we sounded pretty good.
That's awesome.
We got some good sounds, It's like, it doesn't resonate.
Maybe that was his big musical moment in life.
Right.
Everybody has one.
Right.
This may have come a little later.
Well, everybody saw that as the end for him. But in his mind,
it was just the beginning,
we were
man.
fucking out there,
That's
man.
Amazing.
But so, needless to say, I ended up listening to Rumors 3 times for no fucking reason. Then I watched the documentary of your movie last night.
Yeah.
And it all starts there.
Well,
with that board, anyways.
With
kinda.
that board, so the first thing recorded on that board was the Buckingham Nicks record.
Right.
And Stevie and Lindsay recorded on it and made the album, which is a really cool record.
Yeah.
But it didn't take off, and they got dropped.
Right.
So they were hanging around Sound City, and Mick Fleetwood was looking for a place to make the next Fleetwood Mac record. So he comes in, he says to Keith Olsen, play me something that was recorded here.
Yeah.
And he plays him the song, I guess it was Frozen Love.
Right.
And it was really into it. Like, wow, board sounds great, room sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm going to make the next Fleetwood Mac record here. And I think he just said hello to Stevie and Lindsay in passing. And then a couple weeks later, they needed a new guitar player because Peter Green was out. And so he called Keith Olsen and said, hey, what about that guitar guy? And Keith said, well, you're never going to get him unless you take his chick, too.
Yeah, of course.
So, and that was, and I mean.
And that turned into a disaster, didn't it?
Well, can you imagine? Like, this is the thing. And that record, that record.
Not Rumors, the one before.
The one before.
Yeah,
the first one was just called Fleetwood Mac. The first one was Stevie and Lindsay.
Yeah.
If you listen to it, it's such a great example of a multi-dimensional, emotionally dimensional band.
Right.
So you've got Christy McVie, man. Like, oh, I swear to God, I think she had such a beautiful voice, and her songs were just like
pretty.
They were like anesthesia. It just made you feel so relaxed and beautiful. And then, Mick Fleetwood, the greatest thing is that Mick Fleetwood, I think, was in charge.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? That dude being in charge of your band?
Yeah.
But the personalities were just all so different and crazy that it made for an album that had so much depth. It was like a musical 7-layer burrito,
And
there was like so much in there.
That Neve console.
And that Neve console
is what went through it.
Right.
And that harnessed all that emotion. And then, and Rumors, I guess, started the role for that thing, right? Or the first Fleetwood Mac album?
It was the first Fleetwood Mac record. And I mean, that's what, okay, so Sound City, before this Neve and before that
album. And I guess I should make
it
it clear that this is the documentary you made.
Yeah.
Sound City.
It's called Sound City.
But it's great, dude.
Well, thank you.
And I like rock and roll, but, I watch movies, but I was moved. I was laughing.
Oh, good.
I was laughing.
Right on.
Because I was excited.
I don't even know what to think of it anymore because You know when it's like when you make dinner by yourself, it's never as good as if someone else made it for you. It just isn't because you know what's in it, and you know how it was made, and you think you could have done it differently, and you eat it, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, this is delicious." You're like, "Really?" Because I guess.
Well, it starts as this weird, the beautiful thing about the movie is that it starts as obviously the Nirvana chapter of Sound City was in the second. You guys started the second sort of wave of what it was about. So the movie is really about this recording studio and these guys who started it.
Yes.
And it's a documentary. But then, once you enter the picture, in a personal way, it really becomes about your journey.
Yeah.
And then you taking that board and realizing, this thing has to remain magic.
Well, here's the thing, is that I think a lot of people don't get the opportunity to understand or appreciate everything that is behind all of those albums that you listen to.
Right.
When you listen to Nevermind by Nirvana or Rick Springfield records or Metallica
Petty,
records or Petty, Damn the Torpedoes. When you listen to those records, Dio, Holy Diver, when you listen to those records, you never really take these things into consideration, like the board or the room or the family that owns the studio or the stories behind the people that made the record or the producer or that, because you get the album and you look at the picture and you read the liner notes and you hear the song, and that is rewarding enough. But the thing about music is that I love are those stories, and that it's entirely human.
It's the magic.
So when I say that the Sound City movie is about the human element of music, it's not just the human element of performance,
right,
or the human element of production. It's the human element of everything. It's the story between the people. The Fleetwood Mac story is amazing because it's like,
when Rumors
it's like the stars aligned,
Yeah.
and that band came together.
And then in Rumors, it exploded.
With Nevermind.
Yeah.
We were 3 shitty fucking dirtbags in a van. We had 16 days and no money.
Yeah.
But we managed to get to Sound City with that board in that room and make Nevermind. Had we not made it with that board in that room, we might not be talking right now. Imagine if we made it at like, some Valley studio with some fancy SSL and all this fancy ass digital shit. It wouldn't have sounded like Nirvana.
Right.
So I wouldn't be here if it weren't for that fucking board. So that's why I made the movie. Yeah. I made the movie because there aren't too many moments in life that you're reunited with something as special as that. Like, I honestly feel like that board is responsible for the person who I am today. It's fucking huge. Some people might look at it like, what is this? Is this stereo? Yeah. Is this just a bunch of metal and wires and buttons? Shit? But the thing is that the metal and wires in that piece of equipment are responsible for all of those records. Those people wrote those songs.
R.E.O. Speedwagon.
Dude, come
Roll
on.
with the changes, man.
You can't tune a piano, but you can tune a fish, whatever the fuck it was. So, so to me, it's the human, and that thing's hand fucking made. Someone fucking put a screwdriver to screws and fucking hand wired that board. That thing is handmade, man. And so there's something beautiful about that. There's something beautiful about like the craft and the tangibility of that concept. Like, wow, this entire, because I think that kids need to understand that it's okay to buy a guitar at a fucking yard sale, take it into your garage, invite your neighbor down the street to beat the shit out of some pots and pans, write a song, sound like fucking shit, and then become the biggest band in the world.
As opposed to do it by yourself with made-up instruments on a computer.
Or walk and stand in line for 8 hours at a convention center to be on a fucking TV show where a judge hears you sing for 30 seconds and says, you know what, you're not good enough.
Yeah, fuck them.
I mean, honestly, like, I honestly believe that if the next generation of musicians doesn't understand that it's entirely acceptable to do it your own way and to sound like shit and to try to fucking do it better
and to do it with
other people, right, that's rewarding in itself.
Yeah,
you don't have to be the biggest fucking band in the world,
right,
but you can get off playing fucking cheap trick songs in your garage with your fucking neighbor.
And with a few other dudes and just fucking knock it out.
And so,
communal
that's
thing.
what the Sound City movie is about. And that's why in telling the story of the movie and telling the story of Sound City, it's chronological. It begins with the origin of the studio. It goes through these records. But in talking about things chronologically, you have to talk about technology because of the way it affected Sound City. That was state-of-the-art in 1973. That was not state-of-the-art in 1985. By 1985, that board was considered obsolete, and people didn't want to go there anymore.
That was the interesting thing about the movie is the engineer sort of went next door and built the high-tech studio. Keith Olsen. And then all of a sudden this becomes this relic and Sound City starts to, just deplete. It's gone.
Because people got away from what that represented, which I think is a musical truth. Because when you fucking plug in and play on that board, there's nowhere to hide.
Truth and magic.
It's totally magic. But there's nowhere to hide. If you put a fucking microphone up to your face and sing through it, you know what it's going to come out of that board sounding like?
Exactly.
You with the microphone in your fucking face. So you better be good.
Well, I like the whole subtext, and not even such a subtext of like where high tech production went. It just is a double-edged sword. It sort of sucked the soul out of what you're talking about, organic sounding music and community. But then you had to sort of you had to pull Trent Reznor in there to sort of say like, look, man, the technology can be pretty cool if you stay connected to it.
Well, that's the thing is that in talking about technology, you can't blame the computer for what the producer does. You can't do that. What the computer does is basically kind of what any of this shit will do.
Yeah.
Now, let me preface this by saying that sonically, I'm fucking deaf, dude.
Yeah.
I've been playing 125 decibel music for 25 years. So you could A/B a digital recording versus an analog recording. You know what it sounds like to me?
Yeah. Tinnitus.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
do you have a hired set of ears to hear for you?
Oh, exactly. I've got tons.
Where's the ear guy?
Where are my ears? Bring me my fucking ears. No, but so that debate conversation is kind of out the window for me. But you can retain the human element of a performer's performance with any of this equipment. You could use that computer and set someone up with one microphone and get some heartfelt shit.
Yeah.
But the accessibility of a computer, what technology has done for musicians is God damn it, I wish I could have. I wish that I had all of the power and accessibility of a computer when I was young. Because my punk rock bands, when we would go, I dropped out of high school and I jumped in a van. I started touring.
But what was it like?
We would go on the road and no one would have our record because we were fucking hand stuffing those sleeves,
sure,
and selling them out of the back of the
and
van.
having some guy do the art for you.
And so it was like I couldn't get some kid in Norway my fucking single that I made with my friends unless I stuffed it in a fucking package and mailed it to him. It took 2 weeks.
Figured out how much
it's the fucking click of a button.
Yeah, well, that the distribution element is also
it's unbelievable.
It's great,
but it's sort of the same thing with recording though, because now a kid can get a recording program and a computer and a couple microphones and record his band in his living room. But what I'm trying to explain in Sound City is that the magic moments that are made musically happen when a performer embraces and accepts their human element, which I consider to be like the imperfections.
Right.
And that's the personality of playing.
And also, I think innately when somebody approaches a computer to make a song and can correct the tone and can manufacture sounds, that it feeds the insecurity of the artist. That somebody might not feel confident.
Maybe,
so they're like, I can do this and make it feel perfectly, but that the integrity of that is limited.
Oh, dude. I mean, you know what happens now is people walk into the studio and they do 2 takes and they go, just throw it in the tools. Like the second Foo Fighters record, which was made when Pro Tools was available.
Yeah.
We did it with this producer named Gil Norton, and English dude, made all the Pixies records. He's great.
Yeah.
He had me doing fucking guitar takes, like 40 fucking takes in a row to get it perfect.
No Pro
to
Tools.
the point. No, it's a tape, and dude, or I played drums on that record too. And I'm like, oh, this will be a cinch.
Yeah. No.
From fucking noon to midnight on one song.
Right.
I looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger by the end of that. I was just like, and I told him, like, what are you fucking hearing that I'm not hearing, dude?
What did he say?
I can't remember. It's something that I didn't agree with, probably.
Yeah, right.
But, you can work to make it sound.
Right, but what you just said is that
even
in the process, if you do that process, if you follow the organic process, there's going to be an arc of emotion that's going to happen by being driven by a producer who's like, no, and you're like, fuck you. You're like, use that.
Well, there's some sort of like honor or dignity in like fucking like being badass.
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, accepting the way you sound. Like when someone calls me to play drums on a record, I know when they call me. Well,
when everyone calls me to play drums on the record, if I have time.
Because you know what? You know why they call me? Because they want me to sound like me.
Well,
which is
one thing I noticed,
great, because I don't get called to sound like the dude from Rush.
No, you're not a studio guy.
You're
Dave Grohl.
Right. So I go in and I go,
dude from Rush.
That's what they want.
The dude from Rush.
Whatever.
Where's your gong? You didn't bring the gong?
So that's the thing, is I go in knowing like, okay, I'll just play like me, and it's not I'm not the best drummer, and I'm not the dude from Rush. You know, I'm not the best drummer in the world.
But when you watch you drum, you're sort of like, you're like, it's almost like you're like driving something.
I don't give a fuck, dude.
You just want to rock?
I just want to fucking go off. Honestly, like that's how I play.
Like that?
Yes. You know how I learned how to play the drums?
What?
I didn't have a drum set.
Right.
I had records.
Yeah.
And I had a pair of drumsticks that were marching sticks that I stole from a friend of mine.
Big fucking
They're
trees.
Fucking huge, dude. Yeah. They're enormous.
Bonham
like
size.
Baseball bats.
Yeah.
And I set up pillows on the floor.
Yeah.
I'd sit on my knees on the floor. There's a pillow in front of me.
Yeah.
And I'd set up next to my bed. So my bed was like, there were like the toms. There was a chair here that was a hi-hat.
Yeah.
And I would listen to fucking Bad Brains records, or I'd listen to the Ramones, or I'd listen to DRI, or like really fast punk rock shit.
Yeah.
So because those sticks were so fat, and because those pillows had no like play to them at all, and because I was playing the fastest punk rock ever, every time I got onto a drum set, I would break everything.
Because you had to pound.
It was like
pillows.
running with like weights on your legs, you know.
Yeah.
So when I actually sat down at an actual drum set, so that's the only way I really know how to play the drums. And
so no one's going, we want the subtle Grohl sound.
Yeah, I'm not getting asked to make jazz records. You know what I mean? So
that was it. But guitar was the first instrument that you played.
Guitar was the first instrument, and that's where the whole Beatles thing came from, because I got one of those old Silvertone guitars with the amp in the case.
What, at a garage sale? I mean, those were long.
No, my mother was an English teacher, and there was another teacher at school that was selling hers.
But that was already 40 years old by the time you were a kid.
It's like a 62 or a 63.
Right, you opened the top, and the thing, you pulled the guitar out.
And the guitar is that really cool black and white.
Yeah, and the case was like heavy, made of wood.
Well, yeah, the case was heavy because there was a speaker and an amp in there. And so, but the guitar was made of like balsa wood.
Yeah, it was like so thin.
Cheap.
Yeah.
And so I got the guitar and the Beatles complete anthology songbook at the same time with the chord charts because I can't read music.
McCartney on the cover.
Well, this one was black.
Okay, yeah.
And so, or blue maybe.
Yeah.
But then I had that, and I had the two greatest hits: the early years and the later years, the blue
and the
Beatles
red.
and the red one.
Yeah.
So I would just sit around and fucking play along to those, and that's how I learned how to play guitar, and that's how I started understanding composition. Like, oh yeah, this is the verse. And this is the chorus.
And that's where you got all those pop chords.
And that's where a lot of the chords came from. And I didn't really have a teacher to play drums or to fucking
So you were just dealing with the fret diagrams. And you
those little chord chart things. That's enough, dude, Like, I don't want to fucking go to school. I hate school,
So when you were a kid, though, like, what was the situation? How did you get turned on to music? What'd your family?
My father is a classically trained flautist, and so he's like.
Were you close to him?
He's the smarty.
Yeah.
He's the smarty pants with perfect pitch and the whole deal. My mother was.
But did you go to classical performances and stuff?
What do you fucking think?
Of
dude?
course, man.
No, I didn't. No.
Come on,
no.
1 or 2?
No. Well, okay. When I was young, we had music class.
Yeah.
I played the trombone.
You played a trombone?
In school, yeah. It was hard. Heavy, dude. I had to walk to school.
Like, how old were you? Like 9?
Fucking, 8,
So you were the guy with the case,
My friend Larry played the tuba, and he lived even farther away than me.
Tuba.
Fucking poor Larry.
But you never went to, because in terms of, sound... Like, I imagine classical music at that age would have been mind-blowing, but you just avoided it?
Well, the music, like we were talking about AM radio, the music that really got into my head at first was AM radio in the car. So this is mid-70s.
Mid-70s, so you're talking Andy Gibb, Gary Stewart.
Talking Andrew Gold and Phoebe Snow and Helen Reddy and Carly Simon and 10cc.
Like, I remember,
all that AM Gold shit, man.
Yeah. Oh. And I remember Dreamweaver on AM for some reason. Like, and Shadow Dancing by Andy Gibb, and then all those other, those ones you're talking about.
Because those, I mean, honestly, and that was...
Baker Street.
Jerry Rafferty. Dude, right down the line.
Yeah.
Jerry Rafferty's a genius.
I mean, that shit, like that Baker Street was haunting.
See, there's something about that era too of music where you had all of these incredibly gifted songwriters who were really proficient in their playing. So someone like Andrew Gold, or even like the Eagles were Linda Ronstadt's band before they were the Eagles. So they were like all great players. Andrew Gold, dude, I swear to God, not a lot of people. Andrew Gold was the one that sang "Lonely Boy." He sang "Thank You for Being a Friend," and he sang this song called "Never Let Her Slip Away."
Yeah,
dude, this song was not a huge hit in America.
Yeah,
is the most beautiful piece of music ever written. The keyboard sound is a little bit so you might call it cheesy. Yeah, it's not cool anymore.
Yeah, why don't you cover
melodically?
Why don't you cover it?
It is so. We're going to. Just so you know. I'll say it right now. I have this idea for a single. Nobody's allowed to fucking take it. It's called Solid Gold.
Okay.
It's a 7-inch single.
Yeah.
Lonely Boy on one side. Never Let Her Slip Away on the other. 2 Andrew Gold songs. Gold vinyl. Just a fucking gold
you can do it
cover.
Foo Fighters?
Yeah, we talked about doing it recently, but we had to wait. We're going to do it,
Gold
dude.
Still alive? I'm sure
he passed away recently.
Family'd be happy.
But dude, Never Let Her Slip Away is maybe one of the most melodically sophisticated songs I've ever heard in my entire life. You have to hear it. It'll blow your fucking mind.
Okay.
It'll blow your mind.
I'm sure I feel like I must have heard it.
You might not have, because I never had. I was like, and I love Andrew Gold, and I heard it, and I was like, this is about 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like an epiphany. It was like a mind-blowing, life-changing experience that I heard this one song. Like, how come I've never heard this before?
We might not have been old enough to hear it. You might have heard it.
But I don't think it was huge in America. I think it might have done well in
England. Do you ever notice
England.
that about music, where you like as you get older, some of the songs that you thought were shit or cheesy or whatever, it's sort of like, oh my God. This is fucking
Now you
sweet.
love them?
Yeah, or just you like, I don't get Steely
Or you didn't
Dan.
appreciate it at the time.
I'm not a big enough man or a nerdy enough dude.
You're not smart enough. Just say it.
I'm not smart enough.
Yeah,
to
you got to be
understand
smart to
Steely
understand Steely Dan.
Dan. Yeah, I'm still like, I can understand some
That's a
jazz
joke,
and
by
shit.
the way. I'm kidding.
It's an active fight I have going with
Dude,
myself.
have you heard the new Bowie song?
No. Yeah.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
It just came out yesterday.
When I
like
saw
yesterday,
that,
no big run up to it. It was like, oh, new Bowie song.
What's the
Tony Visconti produced it. It is
like old timey.
It is. It's,
Visconti is a big guy, right?
Oh
He
yeah.
did all the,
it's all the song's about Berlin,
and
it's heartbreaking, dude.
really?
Yeah,
Like Heroes heartbreaking?
more.
Come on.
I was playing it, and our drummer Taylor said, "Dude, is he gonna die?" I'm not kidding. You have to hear it. It's fucking the most beautiful thing you've ever heard in your entire
People
life.
have been saying that about the last 4 Dylan albums, so I tell them not to.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Well, it's something about artists who have a distinct voice when they see that light at the end of when they see the tunnel. The intensity of it.
Yeah.
If they can capture it, is pretty.
You got to hear it.
Deep.
It's mind blowing.
Well,
But I
gotta
mean,
do
that's
it
the thing
now.
is like, there's, I think the whole disco sucks era.
Yeah.
Disco sucks.
Yeah,
Disco
yeah.
sucks.
Well,
It's
that's when
fucking
you-
taking
that's
the
when you
life out of
came up,
music.
really.
It's not real. It's disco sucks. And yeah, I mean, I didn't listen to disco. I was listening to that other shit.
To the punk
but I listen
rock,
to
though,
disco
right?
now, and I'm like, well, wait, what's wrong with disco? It's
Yeah.
fun. I put it on in the morning when I'm making breakfast and the kids dance, and those drummers were amazing.
Yeah,
the
there's
disco drummers were fucking amazing.
I got to be honest, man. Occasionally, I'll listen to "Don't Leave Me This Way."
You got to, dude.
Yeah,
Disco's great.
That bass line and
What's
"Don't Leave
wrong
Me This
with
Way."
disco?
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, that bass line. It's yeah.
First of all, and also, I don't believe in guilty pleasures. If you fucking like something, like it. That's the problem with our generation is that residual punk rock guilt. Like, well, you're not supposed to like that. That's not fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's not fucking cool. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
When I was young, it's like, dude, when I was young and I brought 2112 home from my cousin's house in 3rd grade, I was afraid to play it for anybody for 2 reasons. One, because I didn't want them thinking I liked a band that the singer's voice sounded like that.
Yeah.
And also, remember that picture where they're wearing like white kimonos?
Yeah,
The one dude has like the craziest man camel toe. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
could see
yeah.
one of his nuts on
Yeah,
each
yeah.
side of the seam in his white satin pants, you know?
Nothing cool about Rush, really.
But there is, and I should have been able to fucking stand there in
You wanted
3rd
to
grade and said,
stand up
"This is who I am. Fuck you," because that's what it's all about. And I think that people should be able to say that. Like, don't fucking think it's not cool to like Britney Spears "Toxic." It is cool to like Britney Spears "Toxic." Why the fuck not? Fuck you. That's who I am. God damn it. So that whole guilty pleasure thing is like full of fucking shit.
But sometimes that turns into, that's who I am now. I'm not sure what's going to happen in 3 years.
You're right. Yeah. I don't worship the devil anymore.
Yeah,
I still listen to Slayer.
I'm
but
not so happy I was that guy then. I just want to apologize for
I'm
that.
not as satanic as
But
I
I
used
was
to be.
excited.
But I think that's an important part of appreciating music is realizing that you're allowed to like anything.
Yeah.
You're allowed to like any music.
But so you start with the Beatles learning guitar, and then you just went straight into punk rock bands for years. I mean,
it kind of went from, my first love was Edgar Winter's Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And it's an instrumental, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was my first favorite song. That's
Really?
where I realized, like,
It's very catchy,
oh
huh?
my God, I love music. That was that.
Yeah.
Was that song.
Yeah.
Then I got into the Beatles,
Yeah.
and then I had a Kiss poster and a record and a fucking,
One Kiss record, or
what did I have? I had
So you weren't part
Rock
of
and
the-
Roll Over. I had Kiss Alive 2.
you weren't a Kiss Army guy though, were you?
No, not
you just
really.
had a few?
I had a couple.
And then when was the record where you're like, oh, where is this happening? When was the record delivered to you where you got the record and you're like, holy fuck,
that was,
this is my life now?
honestly, that was the soundtrack to a movie.
Which one?
Decline of Western Civilization, the punk rock.
The punk rock one.
The very first Decline.
That's crazy.
I heard the record before I saw the movie.
Right.
I had the record for years before
Yeah.
I saw the movie.
Yeah.
And that record changed my life.
With just the drive, just sort of like,
Well, I had a cousin
Yeah.
who lived in Evanston, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. And
Right.
I grew up in Virginia, and we would go visit them every summer. My cousin Tracy, she's a couple years older than me, and we showed up one summer to the house, and my aunt was like, "Tracy, they're here," and she came downstairs, and she had on fucking Doc Martens. She had
Plaid skirt?
bondage pants.
Oh, bondage pants.
She had shaved like the skinhead girl haircut.
Yeah.
She
One
had
side or both sides.
Yeah. She had like the bangs, then with nothing else.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
And I looked at it. I'd only seen punk rock on Quincy or Chips. And I was like, oh my God, look, she's fucking. And she was like, yeah, come upstairs. And I went to her room and she had this unbelievable record collection. Things that are worth thousands of dollars, like the first Misfits single. Or all these bands from all over the world. And she played me The Decline, which I think had just come out at the time. And she played me the Bad Brains and Dead Kennedys and Minor Threat. And I was listening to this music like, oh my, and she had a band.
Yeah.
She had a fucking band. Yeah. Tracy was the singer of a band, and the guitar player of her band, Jason, was my age.
Yeah.
Actually, I think he was younger than me.
Well, how old were you? 13?
I was
14?
like fucking 12 or something like that.
So
and they played in clubs and they wrote their own songs and they were fucking punk rock.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. And then she was giving me these fanzines from all over the world, and I was just like, fuck all that other shit. Yeah. Fuck that. I want to do this.
I don't want a white jumpsuit.
No, so I fucking come home, kimono. I come home and play this shit for my friends like, you guys, this exists. And they're all like, fuck you. This sounds like shit. I'm like, no, this is amazing, So I had my one other friend.
Yeah.
And that's where I realized, like, okay, fuck it. I am doing this myself.
Yeah.
So I started writing songs by myself and about my dog or my teacher or whatever.
And where were you living?
Springfield, Virginia.
Yeah.
And so
you were the weirdo.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was no other. I used to fucking do morning announcements at my school and play like a Black Flag song to start off the fucking thing.
How long did that last?
Well, my mom was the head of the English department, so
you had some pull.
A little bit of pull.
Little leeway.
I knew some people.
So when was the first band that really took hold?
The first band where we like wrote our own music and shit was this band called Freak Baby.
Yeah.
And we played at like parties and proms and crap like that.
How many songs did you know? Could you do a full
like
set?
8, 10 songs.
Yeah.
That's like a set.
And then when did you go, when did it all sort of lock in? You weren't a drug guy, right?
No, I took acid and smoked a bunch of weed.
A lot of acid, or how many times did it take you to stop?
I got out before I had a bad one, so I'm okay. Like, I got out before I absolutely lost my life. The last one was a little weird. I got shocked by a percolator. I didn't come down for a couple days.
Did you understand electricity
like altered
in a
states?
new way?
It was a little weird. I was afraid that something was going to happen to me. My DNA zipper was going to just fucking unwind. But
you're going to become Shocker. Wasn't that the
I made it.
You could feed on electricity?
Yeah, who Powder, the guy that
that's it,
channels lightning. I got out kind of early. Yeah. I didn't do like coke or speed or heroin or any of that shit.
Oh, that's good.
That was not my trip.
Those are the
just
a lot of
they'll
pie.
get you.
Just kind of.
I was more of like an experienced kind of dude.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to sleep and I didn't want to fucking talk.
Right.
I just wanted to laugh at everything.
Why do we got to make it bad?
It worked.
Yeah.
And so, so I kind of knew in high school that I wasn't going to become the president.
Did you do well or you didn't?
Not really. I mean, it was weird because I had the high
Your mom
school
was
that
a
I went
teacher.
at this fucking school that I went to. And my sister was a senior there. And all the fucking teachers in the high school, I had either mowed their lawn or fucking painted their apartment or babysat
What was your
kids.
mom's name?
Virginia.
So that's Virginia's boy.
Exactly. That's Dave Grohl. I knew all of them,
Yeah.
And so I was the weirdo in high school, but I never got my ass kicked because I just knew everybody.
Well, you have a good disposition. You're a
suppose.
diplomatic
Like,
character.
That's me.
Yeah.
Maybe I should be the fucking president. But no, but I knew the jocks, and I knew the fucking stoners.
You were like I was the same way, where you could sort of, you could exist in all worlds for a minute.
And you could navigate.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You didn't want to hang around the jocks too long because it would probably go bad.
You get your ass kicked at a kegger.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just enough to make them know that you're a funny guy.
Right, yeah. He's okay.
Yeah, we don't understand him.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Fucking dork. Right, but I sort of knew that, and also music became an obsession with me because I wasn't taking lessons and I had learned how to do it by myself. There was so much that I didn't understand, and I felt like I had to learn how to do it myself. So it was kind of like a Rubik's Cube. You know? It was like, okay, God, I really want to figure out this one guitar part. So I would, take mushrooms and listen to fucking a Zeppelin record and try to figure out the solo to In the Light or whatever.
Did you do it?
Sometimes.
You
Well, of
thought you
course.
did.
Exactly. I sound amazing. So, but
I'm better than Jimmy Page right now.
But I kind of also knew that, I mean, that was one of the cool things about that punk rock scene in the 80s was that because you had to do everything yourself, it was completely independent of any sort of like corporate structure. It was all the people doing it for themselves. If you wanted to go on tour, you had to book your own tour. If you wanted to and buy your own van.
Yeah.
If you wanted to make a record, you had to stuff the sleeves yourself.
Right.
You had to fucking put them on
and you
consignment
were proud
at the
of
store.
it wasn't like, it was almost sort of
you were proud of it. I think you wish that it were easier, but of course you were proud because at the end of the day, it's like, I did this.
Yeah, but corporate rock sucks, right?
Well, of course. I mean, that was the whole thing. Like, you can't tell me what to do. I fucking done it myself. So that became like this foundation for the way I looked at life.
Yeah.
Like, right, well, you can do it yourself. The reward of playing music or the reward of living should just be in itself. You know?
You knew
like,
that early?
I didn't. Kind of, yeah. I mean, because my mom was a public school teacher, we didn't have shit, man. I grew up in a house smaller than this fucking room.
They weren't together?
No. He was in town and he's a good dad. Like, he's a brilliant dude. But like, like I was raised in a very, like lower middle class
but smart,
upbringing.
but decent.
Well, they're
people.
brilliant fucking people and good people. They were hardworking Midwestern Ohio sons and daughters of steel workers and fucking civic.
Oh, so you ended up
civil
in Virginia
engineers
later.
Yeah, my dad is a journalist, and so we moved to D.C. right around the time of Watergate. And he worked for Scripps Howard, and he was a PR guy. He wrote speeches for people, and he was a campaign manager. Like
so the flautist thing didn't stick.
It's hard to fucking keep the heat on playing the flute. You know what I mean? So I think because he is a practical and smart guy, he decided.
Did he ever did he have flute time?
Well, no. The other thing was that he was such a heavy musician that he stopped playing the flute because he didn't have 6 hours a day to practice. So when I started playing the drums, it was kind of like, don't just call yourself a musician because you play an instrument. Like, you have to fucking kick ass. You got to be badass.
Right.
And that was a huge inspiration. Like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. Like, when someone calls, you don't want to like impose on anyone. Right. You don't want to walk in and be like, listen to this song. And go, yeah. You want to be fucking good,
So you got that work ethic from your father's broken heart.
Yeah, that's where it came from. Thanks, Dad. But no, at the same time, it was like I understood at an early age because I didn't have that like I hate life Gen X mentality growing up.
You don't seem like a dark dude.
I'm not really that dark.
I think you've obviously...
There might be a little bit.
You've obviously hung with some fairly dark characters.
I know a few. I've known a few. But you know what?
One coming over today.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
My motto in life is it could be worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
worked at the fucking furniture warehouse and I fucking pushed wheelbarrows of dirt to make a flagstone porch in your backyard. And I don't want to do that anymore. I want to fucking do this. And so...
but did your dad? Did he have this? Did you sense it? Like was the flute thing? Did it weigh heavy on him, or was it just done?
We never really talked about it that much. I maybe heard him play it a few times. Yeah.
You should talk about it.
Yeah, maybe. But my mom, we sort of knew early on that like we were happy, but we didn't really have much. So in life, like I didn't aspire to become the biggest lawyer in Washington, D.C.
Was she concerned, though?
No, because I think because my mother had dealt with kids like me for 30 years in the classroom, she could pick out which ones were going to make it and which ones weren't in life. Honestly. I think you're part of being a teacher.
Even the rebellious ones. It's like, well, that one's gone bad, but I think
he's
going to find his way.
You know who her favorite fucking student was?
Who?
The guy that sold me acid. She never knew. She's like, the smartest one in class is fucking blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Mom, he's the one I was buying acid from the whole time.
What'd she say?
Well, this is years later.
Yeah, but
she's like, you're kidding. I knew it. I knew it,
of course. Right.
But, that's the thing is like, kids don't do drugs. Yeah. The thing was that she had a pretty good understanding of people and kids.
Yeah.
And so she looked at me and realized, I'm not a total idiot.
Yeah.
There's something in there that's going to keep me from just winding up on Skid Row. So
she was always relatively supportive.
Well, when it was time to drop out, she was like, "Okay,
really,
get a job."
Right.
Because she knew, like, there's some kids. What's that?
She must have been a little mad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, I'm a parent, and the last thing in the world I want is
Yeah.
for my kid to say, I'm going to leave school and I'm going to go on tour with the punk rock band in Europe, and I'm going to send for 2 months and send you one postcard.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want your kid to say that unless you have some faith or some understanding in your child that, like, oh, they might be okay.
But you had an older sister?
I do.
And there's just the two of you?
Just two of us,
How's
yeah.
she turn out, all right?
She's great. I mean, she's brilliant too. She plays music as well, and
Uh-huh.
she taught herself how to do it. And she graduated. And she went to college.
So she had one good one.
Yeah, exactly.
She's like, well,
She's like, well, at least I have Lisa. But that's the thing is, like, after college and all of that, you know what she did? She started a coffee shop, and she had a coffee shop in North Carolina for years, and and then she went and she worked for Warner Chappell Music for years.
Yeah.
And she's a Pilates instructor. She's a human being. It's like, that was the thing, is I never felt like, I didn't feel like I had to subscribe to that.
Right, you didn't feel like you were throwing something away.
No, but I also didn't believe in that conventional route of wisdom or survival.
Right, right.
Really? Because I bet you I could come up with something that could still put food on the table.
Right, yeah. The
I could
wisdom of,
always
like,
push the wheelbarrow.
Right,
I could
suck it up.
always fucking...
get some insurance, protect yourself.
Look, all my friends back in Virginia who I've
Yeah.
known since I was 5 years old,
Yeah.
dude, I mean, they did what I was going to do. They got a job in town, and they wound up getting married, and they wound up having kids, and they live where we grew up, and that was what I was going to do.
Wound up getting
and I didn't
divorced
think it
and
was
losing
so
their job.
and hair.
Yeah.
That was the thing that I just thought would happen.
Are you close with any of those guys?
Absolutely, still.
And they're okay, most of them?
Fuck yeah. Some of them died, but whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that most of them work for me now. No, but
you brought him out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to do that.
That's great.
Well,
That must
I
feel
mean-
good. You salvaged the board that turned your life around, and you brought your friends out here to work for you. You're like a fucking...
Sometimes it's
like the
it
Grohl
works.
the Grohl plantation over here.
Let's not call it that.
I meant it in a good way.
Yeah.
They're obviously not slaves.
No.
But but you're let's do it. How about the commune? The Grohl.
I like that.
The
It's more of a
commune's
cult.
better. Yeah, cult. But all right, so like there's something you said at the beginning of the movie that I found sort of powerful, and it was sort of in passing that in the opening monologue, the narration, where you're basically talking about committing your life to this dream,
Right.
and knowing that that the excitement of playing different places every night, and also knowing that the people you're playing with may or may not be here tomorrow or whatever. But it was sort of like you let it hang there. It wasn't like they're going to quit the band, but they might just disappear one way or the other.
I've had so many friends disappear. Some of them have died, and some of them just gone home.
Yeah, I'm done.
That's how I joined Nirvana.
Yeah.
I was with my punk rock band Scream.
Yeah.
And we had a bass player, Skeeter. I love him to death. We're still friends.
Is he
to this
working
day.
here?
No. he's back in D.C. I think he's in jail, actually.
Well,
but anyway, so he just left.
Mm.
And I mean, we were living on $7 a day, and he got a bus ticket home. So we were stuck here.
Yeah.
Me and Pete and Franz.
You were out here?
We were here.
In
we were
LA.
staying with Pete and Franz's sister Sabrina was a mud wrestler at the Hollywood Tropicana.
Yeah.
And so she lived in this nice house in Laurel Canyon with some other mud wrestlers. It could be worse.
Yeah, sure.
That's where we got stuck.
Yeah, okay.
And so Skeet just left.
But you couldn't really argue with him, right? I mean, how was that fun?
Well, I mean, we were in heaven because we were like living the dream. We were in a house full of fucking
mud
wrestlers for $7 a day. It was great. But and then I called a friend and said, "Hey, when you come back down here, we're stuck here because Skeeter bailed and we got nothing." And he said, "Well, have you ever heard of Nirvana? They're looking for a drummer." And that's how I joined that band. But what I was trying to say in that introduction, in that narration, was that that when you're young, you still have that ambition to like follow dreams, and it's kind of reckless, and you don't know what's going to happen
and
next.
You don't really think
and that's
about
what's
it either.
really exciting.
It's
right.
Like,
I mean,
is what I'm doing.
When you're young, I think your sense of consequence is maybe less formed than it is when you're older. But
or forethought.
Right. And so because who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
You know what? The fuck tomorrow. Like living right now.
Right now, out of this box.
And that's a healthy way to live.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's a hard way to survive, but it's nice to have those moments in life, just to celebrate right fucking now.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. And I think that could apply to every single musician in the movie. When I say we were just kids, but we had these songs and we had these dreams.
Yeah.
So we threw them all into the back of an old van and just started driving. I bet you John Fogerty could say the same thing. I bet you fucking Lindsey Buckingham could say this. Neil Young could say the same thing. Everybody could say the same fucking thing.
I think Neil said it. He was
there you
driving
go.
in that car.
Oh, dude, there was so much shit we couldn't fit into the movie. Can you imagine? Like,
Is it going to be on DVD extras or what?
There's extras, but I mean, there's 1,500 hours of interviews.
Dude,
with everybody.
Have you listened to fucking Creedence on vinyl lately?
Not on vinyl,
dude.
I mean, that's the thing. There's another great quote when Jim Scott, the famous engineer, says, "You know what? When you turn it up to 10, you crank this board. You know what you get? You get Creedence, dude." And I kneu exactly what he meant. I'm like, "Whoa, really?
Did they? Yeah. That was their board too?
No. But he came in and recorded with Carl Perkins and Johnny Cash and Petty. And
I saw he was on a flight of mine, and it was one of those moments where. I never know what the fuck to say to people. Yeah. And, he looked good. He seems to be fairly...
It's great, dude.
Yeah.
Sounds
grounded, yeah. And I just said, I love your work. It's one of those, like, I got
Were you wearing flannel?
Probably. And he's like, thanks, man. It was just... And sometimes there's part of you that thinks, well, I'm not going to say anything. Then there's part of you that's like, I'm going to go make him know who I am. And then there's just a part of you that's like, if I were a dude who does what... I do what I do. Anytime someone says... I love your shit. Yeah. It's good.
Absolutely.
You're never annoying.
You never know. That's the thing is that when you... I mean, hopefully every artist feels that way. That someone will come up and... Because some people ask me, like, do you get sick of that? I'm like... No, it's flattering.
Why would I get sick
makes
of
me
people
feel,
saying that they like me?
I'm glad they don't come up and go, you know what, your band sucks shit, man.
You can't play. Yeah.
Wouldn't that suck?
Oh, it's awful.
No, it's great. When
you can get that on Twitter if you're diligent enough.
Well, yeah, because they're not in your face and you're not going to put their teeth down their throat.
Right, don't go to some comment boards.
Exactly.
Well, one of the most touching moments of the movie, really, and I was laughing a lot because I got, my musical taste spans, a lot of time.
Right.
Like even with Carl Perkins, I was like, I was as excited as Tom Petty was. Yeah. I love Tom Petty, and I love really everyone who was in the movie. Even Rick Springfield, like who I pretty much dismissed, was so vulnerable and sort of open about his emotions in relation to the place because he was really their first star.
Yes, he's the first one that they had
managed, right?
That they managed and did the production deal with.
It's sort of a heartbreaking story, but when you get into the studio with him to play that song, like you could just tell it's like I still got it in me.
Well, here's the thing: is that I think Rick Springfield's story is different than everyone else's because had that whole General Hospital thing not happened, I think people would have thought of him in a different way. He was
as
sort
a
of
pop star as opposed to like this actor,
I mean,
pretty boy.
I think that he was sort of seen as a pop star. He's a rocker. Mm-hmm. Like deep down, that guy's a fucking rocker.
He was playing great. He sounded great in that.
Dude, you should fucking. I mean, we're going to do these shows. Do you know about the shows we're doing?
We'll talk about the album and the shows.
Okay, so anyway, but when we jammed with him, he has the enthusiasm of a 16-year-old kid. He rips guitar just like any other fucking rocker you've ever met in your life. And when he does it for real.
Yeah.
So, because he had these real pop hits, I think people think that it's in some way like it doesn't hold as much weight as someone like Petty or Fogerty. But you know what? I don't know if I agree with that because when you listen to the songs that Love Is All Right or Jesse's Girl.
That one
there's
got
another.
Kind of like, it's hard
I've done everything for you, dude. That is a Buzzcock song. Yeah. Listen to that song. The structure and the melody and the arrangement. It's a fucking Buzzcock song.
It's so hard.
They had different haircuts, but it's the same fucking music.
Yeah.
So when you listen to it now, like I swear to God, if he re-recorded these songs with the Foo Fighters today, you would hear it on K-Rock. Yeah. It would be fucking on K-Rock.
Yeah,
it just would be.
Yeah.
And because it's because there's this. As musicians, what we all do comes from the same place. might have a different name, might have a different haircut, whatever the fuck, but it all comes from the same place. And so that's why when I talk about from that it comes from the garage. It comes from being the kid that bought a guitar at a yard sale. It comes from
raw honesty.
It should be. Like that's it. And so
that's rock and roll.
Right. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter. Like, that's why I don't believe in guilty pleasures. Right. That's why when I hear, like, this new band, Bleeding Rainbows, have you heard this fucking band? They're great, man. And I listen to them, and it's like, you look at them, and you're like, oh, they're that kind of band. Yeah. Or you hear this other music, you go, oh, they're that kind of band. Or that kind. It's like, fuck that. Like, why can't you listen to the Zombies and listen to Kraftwerk and listen to fucking, Well,
sometimes it just comes down to what we were saying before, is that, if you don't have that moment with the kimonoed rush, like, you can listen to whatever you want. Right.
Exactly.
If you can listen to whatever you want, and if it doesn't grab you,
close your fucking eyes and
but you don't have
to
close your mind to it.
Right, exactly.
But, I can listen to Kraftwerk a few times and be like, hey, I'm not sure what to do with this music. I get it.
Yeah, sex with a computer.
Yeah, sure. I can fuck a computer, or I can pretend I'm a robot, whatever I'm going to do. Right. But it didn't really grab me. I force myself now. There are things that I'm trying to pick up on. Like, I've got, I've been hearing about Captain Beefheart my entire life. So now I'm sort of like, I got it. Beefheart's
that's a slippery slope. Yeah, you got to, I haven't even gotten there yet, dude. I'm afraid. It's true.
That's the same way I felt.
It's like, I remember when I first listened to Pet Sounds. Yeah. And my friend Matt Sweeney said, oh, that's a slippery slope, dude. Yeah. Be careful. I'm like, really? It scared me. I was afraid. What's going to happen? Oh no. What do I do?
You're going to end up in Brian Wilson's head if you're not careful.
Exactly. Like in pajamas all day long, crying with a beard.
Yeah.
Eating fried chicken in bed.
That's the weird thing about those songs. It's like, oh my God, they're so pretty, but why am I crying? And with Beefheart, it's like I'm sitting there with these records going, it's in here. The truth is in here. And then all of a sudden you're in this weird place that feels a little wrong and a little dark. Yeah. And like, I'm
just, can't get out. I can't get out.
Yeah. I'm just kind of parsing it out. I'm just being careful, with it.
Yeah. But I mean, this is, and then there's another great quote in the movie that Brad from Rage Against the Machine said, one of the great things about music is you find an artist that you love and then find out who they loved. And then find out who they loved. Because the farther back you go in music, right? Because things were maybe like more, there were more technical restrictions, or it was a little more simple recording. Yeah. That human element really does come through.
It's also amazing just how much of that search ends up with a black guy sitting on
it always chair. Go back. Yeah, you're not going to wind up
with old strings on a shitty guitar. That's the guy.
It's true. Oh, he started everything. Yeah. Wow. Where's he now? Oh, he died of poor.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Working in a hospital as a janitor. Right. Yeah. But all right. So when the moment that I was talking about though was like you got this record that you're doing that goes along with the movie, right? To sort of honor Sound City. Like it was very interesting. You got Stevie Nicks in there. And you did something, and with Rick Springfield too, you did something that's sort of hard to do, is that you were able to let these artists, be who they are now. Yeah. And provided enough comfort in the music and enough support for them to sort of like not look like some, like they were trying again or trying too hard or living on, their past. Cause you see some acts that are now in their 50s or whatever. Yeah. And they're just trying to churn out their catalog in order to sort of sustain themselves. Right. But there were moments when I was watching Stevie Nicks and Springfield in that movie where it's like, yeah, he's really in it. And, this is who this guy is now. But the moment that I was talking about was that when McCartney was in there, it was so wild to watch that because like clearly, there wasn't a song prepared.
No.
And you were just sort of, and he was just sort of riffing, and all you had was, it was one chord at the beginning. And then when he said, like.
Dude, all I wanted was my picture taken next to him. Right. That would have been enough.
Right, but
just a Polaroid picture.
Well, that was the amazing moment when you were like, I was watching Chris, and he was being Chris, like we were at Nirvana, and I was playing, and what's his name?
Pat.
Pat was on guitar, and it's like, hey, it's Nirvana. What's Paul McCartney?
Paul McCartney's here? I know.
That was such an honest moment, And
you have to imagine that, first of all, Paul is the greatest dude. He's a wonderful person. He totally understands his role in the universe. Yeah. He really does.
And he's important in the universe.
He's very important in the universe.
He's actually like...
Our universe wouldn't be the way it is if it weren't for Paul McCartney. And that is the absolute fucking truth. Yeah. So I think that he understands that in a very realistic sense.
Yeah.
He's not egotistical.
Yeah.
the first thing that Paul will do when you meet him is make you feel like you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The last thing in the world.
I know it's hard for you.
Yes. I mean, he understands that. I remember reading an interview once where it said, where this journalist followed him around for the fucking afternoon. And, you know, when he walks into a bakery, everyone goes, oh, yay! And then he goes to the gas station, everyone goes, yay! And wherever he goes, people are like, yeah, it's Paul McCartney! And it happens to him every fucking day, everywhere, every fucking day. Yeah. So the journalist says, you understand that. Right? Yeah. And Paul McCartney says, of course, it's one of the great luxuries of my life. Everywhere I go, people are happy. Can you imagine? But, I mean, fortunately, in return, we have the Beatles, we have Wings, and we have his beautiful music. But, I mean, the thing about playing music with Paul, to me personally, is that because he is the foundation, the Beatles are the foundation of my musical being, my fabric of my musical person and my knowledge, exactly, that when I sit down and I jam with him, that I don't forget that. That's not lost. Like, I know that person is responsible for me playing music. It's fucking him.
And that board is responsible for you being a rock star.
So that day, in the studio, I'm sharing this with Chris Novoselic and Pat Smear, and Paul is there. Like, I was thinking about that the entire time. Yeah. So, I mean, it was like
life.
It's like your life flashing before your eyes all day and you don't die. It was fucking incredible. And it's on a fucking movie.
Yeah.
And so,
and on a record. And you did it through that board.
Right there. I mean, we did it right there in that room and there in that board. And so, to me, that's the thing that a lot of people don't get to see or understand in music is what goes on behind the performer.
But yeah, but also
and the
like
vulnerability of a performer.
When Butch is like, there was that great line. It's like, Butch Vig's going to tell Paul McCartney what
Paul
to do.
Goes, so we'll just try it and you let us know what you think. And I go, yeah, Butch, just tell Paul McCartney what to do. Because, I mean, but can you imagine? But that's why Butch is so great, by the way. Because
and he did the first, the big Nirvana record.
Yeah, he did. Never mind.
So. But that moment where Paul says, what if you guys decide to do the chord change, right? And you elevate it.
Right.
And then Paul does that fucking Hey Jude thing where he's like, let's take it one more up. And it's like, that's why he's Paul McCartney.
Dude, at one point we were sitting right here on the couch. Yeah. And Paul goes, he goes, hey, go in there and just double what I've sang. Yeah. Just sing over what I sang. And I go, okay, you want me to sing a harmony over it or just double what you've done? He goes, no, just double what I've done. Me and Lennon used to do it all the time. It sounds great. I was like, are you fucking kidding? Who am I? Who am I right now?
You won.
Dude, I honestly, if it were just that moment and there were no album and there were no movie and there was no board, any of that shit, I would die a happy fucking man, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you when all this stuff is happening? I mean, do you ever because I see that you have a lot of emotion and respect for where you are and how you got here and for the people that are responsible for that. Do you ever miss Kurt?
Absolutely. Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I don't want to get choked up. It's still sort of hard to talk about, but if you can imagine like all of the great things to look forward to, that's what the Foo Fighters is to me. Yeah. Like it's, to me when Nirvana was over, it's like, oh God, am I over too? Like, what do I do with my life? Fuck music. Like, what am I supposed to do? So I sort of realized then, like, oh, right, music is what's going to help me get through stuff. And it did. But if you think about, like, look at how fucking amazing this experience has been. So even on your worst day, on your darkest day, you have to imagine that these things are still possible. And, of course, I think about it like, God, fuck, that sucks, So, yeah.
Yeah, and and just the frankness with which you talk about the process of the risk of rock and roll and the type of personalities that were in it. Yeah. And I sometimes try to, get a sense of people with, who were around people that, shined that brightly, but were clearly in trouble. Was there like an active concern, during your time in Nirvana for him in that way?
Yeah, there was. Everybody was concerned at one point or another.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't imagine the worst case scenario. It's hard to imagine that the worst case scenario is actually a possibility.
But you didn't see it ending like that, did you?
No, I don't think anybody ever did. But at the same time, it's like, God, we were young.
Yeah.
And it was such a weird world in those 2.5 years, really. It wasn't long. It was from 1991 to 1994.
Yeah.
And we were kids, basically.
Yeah.
And we were caught in this crazy world. And there were times where I would just back out of it. I mean, being the drummer, it's like nobody'd recognize. I could walk in the front door of a Nirvana gig and fucking no one would know who I was.
Right.
My hair was in my face. I played drums that were bigger than I was. And then
you were just arms.
Yeah, I was a fucking drummer, you know? So fortunately, I was able to live this this perfectly comfortable existence outside of the band.
Yeah.
I could do that for a lot of reasons. I could do that because of my childhood and because of my parents and because of my connection to music. My connection to music doesn't come from a dark place. It comes from the love of life and the love of music. So I fortunately had all of those things on my side.
You're grounded.
In a way.
You weren't vulnerable.
I still spent too much money and fucked too many chicks, but
that's part of the life thing.
I guess. But so that was my saving grace.
Yeah.
And I think that's, without that, it might have been a different story for me. I might have gone the other way. I might not have survived, That's the coolest thing. When I see a lot of these musicians, like when you go and you see the Stones, or you see Paul, or you see Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
I mean, Pearl Jam's a great example. I look at them, I'm like, wow, they survived.
Yeah.
Fucking A.
Yeah.
They fucking made it.
Yeah.
I'm sure the guys from Warrant look at Bon Jovi and say, wow, he survived. How did that happen? I don't know. How did he get through? It's like,
well, you had some pretty beat
the
up,
eye of the needle.
Right, but you had some pretty beat up dudes in there for this record. I mean,
right,
and they were great.
They survived.
I mean, dude from Fear, what's his name?
Leaving. Dude.
That was another one of those moments where you showed the old footage of Fear, and they were fucking great.
Of course.
And then, you sort of pushed him to do what he does, but now.
Yeah.
And it was right there.
Dude, honestly, I think that if you begin from that place,
from where you are now,
if you begin from that place that is real, then you'll end up there too. Like it should be that way. I'm sure that if someone stands in line for 8 hours at a convention center and then they get on the TV show and then they win the record deal and then they make a record and then they fucking get dropped, they're like, well, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Of course, starting from a different place, they might end up in a different place.
Right.
Go to the fucking yard sale, buy a fucking guitar, start a band with your fucking friends, get in the garage and fucking suck, and work on it until you fucking make great music and become the biggest band in the world. And when you become the biggest band in the world, you'd be like, God damn, wasn't the garage fun?
Yeah. Can we go back there? Let's build the garage.
Exactly.
Can we build a garage in the back of
these stadiums. Remember the garage?
Let's tour with the garage.
Exactly.
Thanks, Dave. So so the record is called
Sound City.
Oh, so it's both the same name.
I think. I'm not a businessman. I don't even know.
I'll do some research.
I think it's Sound City.
All right.
And the movie, it comes out February 1st, and the record will be out in the middle of March, and we're doing all these shows.
Oh yeah, tell me about those shows.
So I had another idea that besides. Okay, so you tell the story of Sound City.
Yeah.
But then you also make a record.
Right.
But then you got to do some fucking gigs.
Yeah,
so I've invited all of the people from the movie, not only back to make the record, but to come and do some gigs too.
Who is everybody?
Well, you've got, on the record, you have Paul McCartney, Trent Reznor, Alain Johannes, Josh Homme, Chris Goss, Rick Springfield, Lee Ving, the guys from Rage Against the Machine, Timmy and Brad from Rage Against the Machine, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, I hope I'm not leaving anyone out, Rick Springfield. Mm-hmm. And so I basically, Stevie Nicks, I blasted everybody emails and said, hey, we at least have to take the show on the road and do some gigs.
Who's in?
almost everybody at some point.
It sounds like a festival.
Every single person, and then even Fogerty too.
Oh,
so I mean, so what we want to do is we want to have a premiere, and then that night at a theater downtown, do a gig where we not only play the songs from the soundtrack, but some catalog songs from each person.
Oh, that's fucking be awesome. That sounds like a 2-night thing, though.
Wait till you see the fucking list of songs we have to learn this week.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for talking, man.
Okay, bye.